I've been coaching for 38 years, very passionate about it. Well, a couple of years ago, I had an opportunity to do something, another passion of mine is that's to help young guys to be more than just football players, to really prepare them for life after football. My dad dropped out of school when he was in the 6th grade. See, my dad was one of those guys that his actions and his words matched. And that's what integrity is. What is it that you want for your life? And I look at my dad, and then I'll tell you, the thing that drove him is that he wanted to get out of the projects, own his own home. His vision for our family was that we would be secure and self-reliant. And he demonstrated that with his actions. Vision. It's like we all have that. We all have that vision, that picture. How we want our lives to be. You want to live in your vision, and not in your circumstance. I coached at Tennessee, had a young man, Inky Johnson. Inky grew up in Atlanta, and his story sounds a lot like mine. He grew up in the projects. There were 6 kids, and he talked about how, they shared a bed. 3 slept up top, 3 slept at the bottom, that kind of thing. But Inky was an outstanding player also. And we would always talk, and he was one of those guys that you always want to be around, because he's a fun guy. So I'd always go to Inky and I'd say, Inky, are you ready to play? And Inky would say, yeah, coach, I'm ready to play. I got peace and I got joy. We were playing the Air Force Academy, and he's tackling this guy, and as he's tackling this running back, the running back's helmet hit him right here, severed his nerves. Now understand that Inky is going to be a top 30 or a top round draft pick. All that came to an end. That helmet hit him right there and severed nerves. He had to have vascular surgery. See, one of the things that my dad would always talk about was being an impact and not just an impression. When I went to that hospital to visit Inky, first thing I noticed is that there was a line of people to see him. You had friends, you had family, you had players, you had professors. I'd never seen that before. You had professors trying to get up there to see this guy. So I finally get up there, and when I walk out of the elevator, that mother is standing there. And she gestures to the room. She says, Coach, I don't know how I'm going to make it. My son will probably never have full use of his arm. And I pray a little bit harder. And then she hit me with another one. She says, Coach, my husband has terminal cancer. I walk in that room and I thank God. I say, thank you for giving me this, the chance to do this. So I walk in that room. I walk over to Inky. I look down at Ink, and I say, Ink, how are you doing? That boy looked up at me with the biggest smile that you could imagine. And he says, Coach, I'm all right. I got peace, and I got joy. He inspired me. Everybody in that room was encouraged. Because, see, he was living in his vision and not in his circumstance. Circumstance said, you're never going to play football again. Circumstance said, a lot of your goals are gone. But he chose to live above his circumstances. When you look at my dad, we're living in the projects. We don't have, there's just he's working 2 jobs to support us. But guess what he's always doing? He's living in his vision, because he got caught up in the circumstance of where he was. What he later achieved would have never happened. You got to have what I call clarity, a process. That's what I tell these young guys. They said, Coach, I want to someday own my own business. Or, Coach, I want to someday play in the NFL. It's not enough to have that. You got to have a process, a clear process about how you go about achieving that. And when I start thinking about process, the thing that comes to mind is what I call the discipline bridge. Because because it takes work. You see, the difference between, when I talk with the kids, the difference between the haves and the have-nots is that the haves are willing to build a bridge. You see, I put an illustration on the board. I put an image of a bridge on the board when I talk to players. And I said, you know what? We all stand right here. We all stand right here on this side of the bridge. And we all have vision. We all have things that we want to achieve. But to get from your vision or your goal to your accomplishment, you got to build a bridge. The bridge is work. It takes some time. You see, in New Orleans, when Katrina hit, the thing that you saw, first of all, the big problem was getting to the damage, to fix it. So you start seeing all these little bridges all around the city. Because the bridge allows you to get to the damage, to fix it. And once you understand how to fix it, it's amazing. When you have those little personal disasters, you can fix the bridge. You got to sustain the effort. You got to be committed. See, great leaders make their mark when they're committed to a cause with reckless abandon. When they just go all out. That's how you make your mark. See, my dad had I can remember we had a 1857 Turnpike Cruiser. It was an old car, and that's all that they could afford. My mom was involved in an accident, and it totaled the car. Parents couldn't afford to go get another car. So Dad gets the car towed to our driveway or whatever, and he's out there. People would come by and they laugh at it, and I'll be honest with you, I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And here's this guy that's not a mechanic, but he starts to take stuff off of the frame because the frame is bent. He takes all this stuff off the frame, goes to the junkyard, gets another frame, brings it in there, and people are saying, that idiot. Can you believe that idiot? There's no way. And I'll be honest with you, as a child, I'm like, why can't we just get another car? To get through it, he just kept working at it. He kept working at it. He kept sustaining the effort. Within a month, we're driving a car. You see, guys, it's like this. You got this oak tree. If I were to say, look, hey, take this axe, chop down this oak tree, how many of you could go and hit it one time and knock that tree down? You can't. You got to keep on chopping it. You got to keep on chopping it. See, through my dad, I understood that. You got to keep on sustaining that effort. You got your vision. You got your clear process, how you're going to go about it. You got to sustain the effort, son. You got to keep working. The fourth part of it is you got to declutter. That means you got to get the junk out of the way of your picture. Can you imagine this guy? He's not, he drops out in the 6th grade, not very educated. Can you imagine what he's hearing? When he says to people that, someday I want to own my own house. Can you imagine? How can you do that? How can you do that? You dropped out of high school in the 6th grade, you're working in the shipyard. You got 6 kids at the time in the projects. What you ought to be doing is accepting welfare, which he refused to do. He said, I'd rather work 3 jobs than to be dependent upon someone. He had to declutter, he had to get the junk. But the number one thing that he had to deal with was himself, because now it's like, I say to myself, replace the negative with the positive. Get those out of there. It's all about, see, to me, it's about attitude. We have the ability as human beings to alter our state of mind by changing our attitudes about things. We have the ability to do that if we're willing to do it. And his attitude was like, I talk to young people about writing their own story. His attitude was like that, the thermostat. See, the world is full of thermometers. because they merely reflect what's going on in society. They merely kind of, whatever the temperature is, whatever's going on, it's okay with them. People sort of dictate to the thermometer how it lives its life. But the thermostat controls. The thermostat's in charge. And when you're going to be in charge of your life, you got to get the junk out of there. Because what it empowers you to do is write your own story. You decide. I have a brother right now, and I tell this to kids, and this story. And my brother was a nuclear engineer, and is in prison right now for probably the rest of his life. And I would hang out with my brother, and every time I'd go with him, there was always some drama. Larry, he said, Larry, we got some girls over here. So you want to come over? I said, man. So I get there, when I got to his house, he's standing there with this change box. And he says, hey, I promise these girls this money, but I'm not giving it to them. Would you put it in your trunk of your car? So I take it out there, and I didn't think anything of it. So we go in and whatever, and then and then afterwards we're leaving, and here's a little innocent Larry. I'm sitting in the back seat of this car, and a little girl says, "She knows what you did." My brother said, "What are you talking about?" She knows it. You took money out of her purse, paid her with her own money. That was my boy then. And she has a knife, and she will cut you. Well, my boy reaches down and he pulls a biggest handgun I've ever seen in my life, a .357 Magnum, and he puts it to her head, and he says, now if you can cut me before I blow your brains out, you go right ahead and try it. I had some decisions to make, guys. Well, I had to push him away. I love you, Joe, but I can't hang around you. What would have happened, when I ask kids, what would have happened if I kept hanging around? I could have ended up like him, in prison. The key is this. He would have written part of my story. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I got determined about, from my dad, I want to write my own story. So you got to declutter. You got to have vision. You got to have a clear process. You got to have a sustained effort. You got to declutter, get the junk. I say to myself, and you got to claim it. You got to claim it. This is my vision. Own it. And you own it by your actions. And let me finish by saying this. My dad taught himself how to do upholstery. All right, he because we would tear the furniture up. The 3 boys, we would tear, and you know, I don't know if you're older. We had to hide a bit because again, we're a 2-apartment building with 6 kids. So if you ask me where we all slept, I couldn't tell you. I know that we probably slept on that little sofa bed. All right. People would come out of the house and they'd say, Mr. Slade, so wow, you guys got new furniture. He said, no. He said, I had to do this because of my boys. So this is an image that I have that I'll always stay with me. The first job that he ever did was someone in the project says, Mr. Slade, would you do my couch for me? And the image is on that old car. He's got that couch on the back of that old car, and he's driving through the projects, taking it to his first deal. Well, you know what? He got pretty good at it, guys. He never had to really advertise, and he did work for governors. He did work for presidents of universities. The whole spectrum. He got really good at it. I want y'all to imagine this. At 85 years old, my dad's dying of liver cancer. He's probably within 2 to 3 weeks of his death. And I can remember going by the house and walking out there in the garage, and he had one last job. the most difficult job I've ever seen him have. I mean, it was a part over here, had to do this and do that, and I stood there and I said, oh my God, my goodness. And he would say, you know what, Larry, he said, when I get a little frustrated, instead of just, when I was younger, I just keep on at it. He said, but I just go in the house and relax a little bit. I'm thinking, you know, wow. I went by there again, a little bit more of his day. About a week before he goes in the hospital, I went by there. The job is finished. Most beautiful job that you can imagine. The job is finished. Finish the job. Finish the job. Live in your vision, not in your circumstance. Appreciate it.
We have a few minutes for questions. Does anyone have questions? Joanne.
Did your dad get his house?
Yes.
Yes.
We moved from, I'll tell you, talking about work ethic, we moved from, people always talk about it, they look at us now, and I'll always say, you guys don't know my story. From 375 12th Street, which is the projects, the next move was to Ivy Avenue, which was right across the street, but it was a rental property. And we were there for a while, and then we moved from there to Hampton, Virginia, bigger garage, own his house. Yes.
Yeah, this is great.
Whatever happened to Inky?
Inky,
You know what?
if you
you know
go
what I was
online,
hoping you were going to tell me? That you hired him as an assistant coach.
hey,
That would've been-
Inky,
what a story that would have
hey,
been.
let me tell you what. Let me tell you. He impacted our football team more. I mean, after he got hurt, more than it was as a player. If you can imagine this man, he's one of my favorites now. We're out there in the summer after his injury, and he's out there doing the drills. He's running sprints, man. He's got the, and those guys, my guys were like, you know, if this guy can do it, wow. But if you go online and look it up, he's a motivational speaker. He's phenomenal.
Coach, y'all had great success recruiting kids out of South Florida. And I just wondered what it is that you all, what you sell when you talk about the University of Louisville, the city of Louisville, and maybe even our climate as opposed to, it's got to be a big adjustment for some. And how happy they are with the
I think guys are, a lot of times, want to get away from Miami or get away from, they see us as a northern school. It's amazing. So, a lot of Southern kids want to go north, you know. But the opportunities, the city itself, the opportunity to play for Coach Strong, a young man's family, when you say that 88 of your, and I might not have his number exactly right, but out of maybe 90, it was like 80 out of the 90 kids that have been seniors here since Coach Strong all have their degrees. Okay, so you put all of that together, the opportunity to play in a great program and a great conference and all that. But the school itself, the city, it all sells itself, and then the players that we have. When we get those guys around our players, and they are success-oriented guys, they want to be a part of that.
Coach, the hardest thing that I've heard with young men today is getting down to stay away from too much alcohol or drugs. And I know that's a problem in some of our high schools here, but what is your philosophy that you do at your place?
Well, we have some what we call core values, and we talk about no stealing, no drugs, okay. Treat women with respect, no weapons, and we're firm on that stuff, and we test our guys. But I think more than that, it's about changing the culture. It's about making them aware of, and the thing that I do with them is the thing about writing your own story, being a thermostat and not a thermometer, and understanding those influences and stuff. And I honestly, I'll put that bridge, big image, in our meeting room. I'll put it up there and we'll talk about those kind of things. Because what happens a lot of times is that you get a lot of kids that have all this, that say, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do. But what happens, things get in the way, drugs and stuff get in the way of it. And they never, ever, like I said, it's like having boats in the dock and never leaving the dock. Never getting out there on the ocean. And out there on the ocean, you're going to have some problems, all right? But you know how to fix it. And so what I'll do, I'll walk. I said, look, I got this program. We're offering this, this, and that. And it's amazing. When we put that stuff up there are some kids, and I call them the guys that are successful, they run it there. They can't wait to sign. But then you'll have this other group. I said, Coach, I can't. Coach, I got this going on. Coach, I got that. So I just put that bridge up there. And I say, you know, when you get to be 40, 45, don't complain about not being, that you didn't accomplish this, or sometimes, well, he's always had it made. No, he built the bridge. He did the work. And you weren't willing to do the work. And I just put it up there and I walk one side of the room to the other side. And it's amazing the impact that has. All of a sudden, some of those guys that wouldn't necessarily sign up would sign up.
Well, Coach, thank you very much.